Welcome to Portland Media Center, the hub of media and storytelling in Maine's largest city. We are here today doing a live taping of our studio workshop, where the public at large, after joining and becoming members of the center, are then trained on our broadcast equipment and we make a show. I am Genius Black, a member of Portland Media Center, host of Maine's Black Future podcast, and a political commentator featured on WCSH Political Brew on Sunday mornings. Today, we are bringing a group of middle school students into the workshop in an initiative called CIVIC IQ. We have also invited District 2 City Councilor Wes Pelletier onto the program and into the studio workshop. The students are behind the cameras right now and in the booth making this program and using the equipment that we use to make these television shows. So, to get into the conversation, Councilman, how are you tonight?
Doing all right, how are you?
I'm doing all right.
Love to hear it.
Yeah, feeling pretty good. Now, you are from Maine, but you didn't grow up in Portland. How long have you been a Portland resident?
I've been in Portland for a little over a decade now. Came here after college, born and raised 20 minutes north, 30 minutes north in Topsom. So been to Portland, but I've been living here for the last decade.
Do you love it?
It's great. Small. It's small. It's a large town, but in a small city.
Yeah, Portland is one of my favorite places.
Yeah.
And I'm from Dallas, Texas. Now, you are also a community organizer, and you work to organize and create a tenant group in Portland.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So around when lockdown was happening, no one was getting their leases renewed. I live in a big apartment building downtown, and we were just trying to figure out what was going on there. And also, it was scary. COVID was out there. And so I just went around and knocked on all the doors and said, hey, have you gotten your lease renewed? I knew the answer was no. And I said, hey, you want to sign a letter to the landlord and sort of ask what's going on? Called ourselves the Trelawney Tenants Union. And it sort of has become this force to make sure that we all feel safe in our homes and are able to speak up for each other rather than just making it so that we have to speak up for ourselves.
Can you give me an example of a safety or something that was protected by signing on?
Yeah, so a thing that I think a lot of can be surprising for people who don't rent is, it's scary to talk to your landlord. Even if you've just got this small problem, you don't want to stick your neck out, create a problem. So what we like to do is we want to be able to represent tenants collectively and say, hey, all of us are worried about this thing. So no, we're not putting any one name on it, we're putting all our names on it. So, if the rent goes up and it's illegal, we make sure that everyone's rent is in the right place and we reach out on behalf of the union and it makes sure that any specific tenant can't be targeted and retaliated against.
Makes sense, kind of creates an appropriate camaraderie between those folks.
Exactly.
But yeah, keeping them powerful though. So the thing is, because there's a lot of issues in Portland that Portland's facing that we've been seeing. Some of the big issues range from soil and improvement to live music venues. It's been a big conversation. But one that's close to a lot of people in Maine is that issue of housing. So can you speak specifically to the difficulty of housing in Portland, Maine?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things we sort of are grappling with is you can make a lot of money if you are renting out a house, whether that's a short term like an Airbnb or a long term like a rental.
Right.
And in this environment, it's hard to really aggrieve someone who's trying to get that bag and trying to make as much money as possible. But at the same time, that's coming at the cost of the people who are making our town what it is and a destination. So the workers who really make us what we are. And so a big part of the balance here is making sure that we can sort of cap rents and make sure that they're not skyrocketing just because, we make some list about best place to work from home from. And instead, it's sensible and keeping people in their homes, because that is something that we're really struggling with. Is people are losing their homes, people don't feel safe in their homes, and we need to be combating that.
So we know that there's going to be Airbnbs and people coming from out of town, but it sounds like you feel like we want to strike a different balance.
Yeah, I think that, for a long, long time, the balance has been on the side of people who have a lot of money, right? Whether that's big corporations or people that, own a lot of different own a big building or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's sort of making sure that you can just get rid of a tenant that's not paying you enough money and someone will come in. And I think the role of government is to really make sure that we're protecting vulnerable people who are just trying to like make ends meet.
And as I agree actually about the role of government to make sure that the vulnerable people don't drop off the bottom. I mean, that's part of why we even have government. I love that. The thing is, though, we also, of course, value development and we value growth. How are you thinking about balancing development while avoiding just higher and higher prices?
Yeah, totally. Like, we need more housing. There's no doubt about that. And one of the things I'm wrestling with, and I know that the entire city is wrestling with, is we've got a lot of people moving in. And they can afford a luxury apartment. They can afford $500, $1 million houses,
Yeah.
and it's really leaving it so that a lot of the folks that have lived here just can't afford those places. So it's how can we make sure that we are building housing that is something that can make sense to build, but also making sure that we've got enough places for folks that aren't super rich and are working in Portland or making us what we are able to live there. And it's not easy.
Well, and that's what I was thinking about. The next question that I kind of had lined up: what is one solution to build a city that can house the people that live and work in it, which is a specific idea, right?
Yep.
Housing the people that live and work in Portland, Maine, and still make progress into the future. Obviously, this is complicated.
Yep.
It's difficult. Landlords need and deserve to make some money and keep their buildings up to date and things like that, but then tenants need to be able to live in the buildings.
Yeah.
And tenants need to be able to afford the home to be able to do that. Can you share any specific ideas about your approach or even successes that you've seen, even in other places, about restriking that balance in this way?
Yeah, so I think where we're at right now, I've been a big proponent of rent control, and I think that that's good at sort of stopping the bleeding, but we need to start creating solutions. One solution that's coming up a lot is called social housing, and that can mean a lot of different things. But that could be things like, the city actually investing in housing projects and saying, hey, a certain amount of these need to be affordable to the people that live here, and we're going to invest in this project to make sure that you can get the funding necessary. And then there's, things like private or public developers, which we've seen in Seattle, and those are actually developers that aren't in it, they're in it as their job as part of the city to make sure that there's housing, not necessarily to, make the highest profit.
And part of what I hear you talking about is approaching the success in housing, even developers seeing it not profit first or maybe profit most, but thinking about maybe humans more so in that balance. It reminds me, I was visiting my mom in Dallas, Texas, that's where I'm from, and she lives in this building, downtown Dallas, bustling area, but there's this whole mixture in her building of people that are like upper income, medium, and low, and there's like really appropriate security, and the building is literally beautiful. And it works. It works. You know what I mean? Like, it was built in a certain way and it was designed to house people from different places, and it works.
Yeah,
I'm just saying that out loud.
Yeah, economic diversity, it really makes a healthy place to live, because we're not scared of our neighbors. We are seeing people that are poor, and we're seeing people that are, better off, and we're learning to live together. And one thing I worry about is, having all these luxury apartments, and they get really afraid of poor people. And a lot of us, grew up poor, grew up, month to month, and being able to create an environment where, we're not stratifying that, and people are mixing and meeting each other. That creates a strong community. We need artists, we need business owners, and we need to be coming together and working together rather than sort of like at odds.
Absolutely, makes for a stronger city. What we're going to do is take a little break before we return to our studio workshop here at Portland Media Center. Welcome back. We are here at the Portland Media Center producing a studio workshop class interview where we bring in a member of the community and the Media Center to be interviewed on camera while we are creating a class on the equipment. Behind the scenes here, we have 4 middle school students from King Middle School running the cameras right now and directing the program from the booth. We showed them how to do this, and now we are letting them run the show. All this happens while I have a conversation with District 2 City Councilor Wes Pelletier. Wes, you spoke earlier about housing early in the program. Let's talk about now what drew you into politics.
I mean, a lot of it was climate change and just, feeling powerless. And so I got involved with local organization, DSA, and that really taught me sort of like how to be involved in sort of a democratic organization, right? Like how to deal with conflict and how to deal with like different ideas. And, then you start trying to solve problems on the local level. And we were doing referenda, and then we're like, oh, referenda, there's only so much that can get done at that point if the city's not really doing what you want it to. So then you get into running for office, and it's a very strange thing to do.
Wow, going for bigger and bigger challenges along the way, it sounds like.
Yeah, you learn a skill set, and you just try to figure out what you can do with it. And I love local politics. It really makes you feel like you have a sense of agency and you are trying to help your home.
Yeah, and local politics are the politics you can touch.
Yes.
Right? Speaking of kind of being hands-on, we're here working with some middle schoolers, and, I love politics and history, but I want to talk more about middle schoolers in governing. What do you think might be engaging to middle school students within the process of governing?
I mean, it really is like a fun part of being elected is you can sort of like ask people to get a tour. I've had colleagues that are like, I want to see the inside of the air traffic control station, and then they get to go look at the air traffic control station. It really is. You get to see the inner workings. You get to see how the process is made. And that's really rewarding. And, it's about learning how to disagree with each other, which I think, we all know how to do, but it's about learning how to disagree and not take it personally and figure out how we're going to build something better. The stakes, it's not the country, it's the city. So you get to figure things out.
I would say that I love that. You can disagree and you can still move ahead. Lost art, but we're bringing it back. All right, so I'm going to tell you that's going to wrap up our conversation with City Councilor Wes Pelletier. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Again, I am Genius Black, host of tonight's studio workshop from the Portland Media Center. We spoke with Portland City Councilor Wes Pelletier, and the whole show is put together tonight by King Middle School students. So if you're interested in taking a workshop with us here at Portland Media Center, go to PMC at portlandmedia.org. PMC at portlandmedia.org.